If you know that you're meant for more impact, so more visibility, more truth, more credibility and authority in your niche, in your space, you know you've got something really valuable to say. You just can't seem to fully step into bigger visibility, bigger eyes on you. Or you can, but there's a huge amount of that sort of internal resistance. Every time you go to show up, you pull back. Maybe you overthink a post, or you write something, but then you soften the opinion. Or you know you're going to film some videos, but you just never get round to doing it. And if that sounds like you, then this video is for you. I built a YouTube channel back in the day, few YouTube channels actually, and had 56 million hits. Over 10 million people watched my career courses, some of them on my own Career Cake platform and some via LinkedIn Learning before I sold the company. But I know exactly what is required to get out of your own way and show the world how good you are so that you can have that outer success, that impact that you want to have. So today I'm going to talk you through my 4-step framework, and that'll help you navigate this and help you go out there so that your people who are looking for you can find you. So let's get into it. Now, I want to say this from the start. Not posting online or being visible does not mean that you're lazy. It doesn't mean that you're inconsistent or that you're flaky. And it definitely doesn't mean that you're not ready. They're just rubbish stories that we tell ourselves. It means that being visible probably doesn't feel safe yet. That's the real conversation that you should be having. And so many people that I work with come to me with a content problem, or they think they've got a confidence problem or a consistency problem, when actually what they have is an emotional safety problem around being seen. And that is a very different thing. There's nothing wrong with you, but there might be something deeper going on. Now, first of all, I think we need to be really honest and clear about what visibility actually is. Because visibility gets talked about like it's just a marketing issue, as if it's just about posting more, being on more podcasts, being consistent, being on camera more, growing your audience. And yes, on the surface, that is part of it. But that's not why it feels so charged. Visibility really is you standing in your truth. And I know that that sounds fluffy, but that is what it is. It's being seen in your perspective, your standards, your voice, your ambition, your difference, your truth, the thing that makes you unique. And that is why it can feel so uncomfortable, because we're not just talking about whether or not you've posted on LinkedIn today. We're talking about whether or not you are willing to be seen fully in the thing that feels most like you. And that is going to feel really vulnerable. That's going to be a lot more vulnerable than just sharing a polished tip or an opinion to keep everybody happy on LinkedIn. And I think actually that's where a lot of brilliant women get stuck. So why does it feel so uncomfortable? Well, there are a few reasons for this. But firstly, because visibility makes you feel exposed, not just seen. And this is the bit that a lot of people don't talk about. But when you start showing up fully, and I mean not just showing up to keep people happy on LinkedIn, but I mean showing up more meaningfully, if that's a word. But what it can feel like internally isn't, oh my goodness, look, I'm expanding. It can feel like, oh my goodness, I'm exposed. And being exposed can feel really dangerous. Because if I'm more visible, more people can judge me. Yes, more people can understand me and buy from me and work with me and collaborate with me and all that. But more people can disagree with me. More people can reject me. And for women who have built their entire lives around being capable, being good, being intelligent, being responsible, being liked, being respected, that risk can feel huge, especially if you're already a woman who's holding a lot. So you're the one that everybody relies on. You're the one that looks like she's got it together. You're the one that everybody comes to for your expertise. You're the successful founder. So the idea of showing more of yourself, your truth, your opinion, your edge, your actual voice can feel really exposing, because now you're not just your competence. Now it's you, really you, to a lot more people, and that can be scary. Another reason why visibility feels so hard is because your nervous system may still associate being seen with risk. And I think that this matters so much because otherwise women end up blaming themselves for something that actually makes complete sense. If somewhere in your life, like me, you learnt that being too visible wasn't safe, or being too opinionated wasn't safe, or being too successful wasn't safe. I've had relationships like that. Or being too ambitious wasn't safe. Or being too much of anything wasn't safe. Then of course visibility feels hard. Of course it does. If you being seen meant more criticism or more exclusion or being misunderstood or being made to feel that you're arrogant or too needy or that you're being difficult, your system remembers that. Even if your mind is going, hey, I really want to grow. So now you have this strange split thing going on inside, right? Where one part of you wants to be seen. You want to grow. You want the opportunities. You want that next level. You want the impact. You want the leadership. You want that authority. And then another part of you is going, nah, absolutely not. That feels dangerous. And that is why you can know exactly what you should be doing, but still not do it. That is why you can be super smart, self-aware, deeply capable, and still find yourself shrinking, procrastinating, delaying, second-guessing yourself. Because this isn't just about mindset and surface level, neat, all that jazz. This is actually so deep. This is about safety, identity, patterning. This is about the stories that you've learned. You've seen it. You've seen what happens when women take up space. And then there's this part, which I actually think is huge. Visibility often threatens the identities that helped you survive, that have helped you thrive in the past. And I see this so much with women that have had hugely successful corporate careers and then leave to start their own thing. Because for a lot of those women, for a lot of years, those identities, like being a good girl, being the reliable one, being the peacemaker in the team, being the one that just shuts up, puts up, doesn't fail, doesn't get things wrong, gets on with everybody, even Mark in finance, who's a bit difficult. All of that stuff, those identities took you a long way. They helped you be really successful. They probably helped you make a lot of money, be really respected in your job in that corporate space. But they don't always help you be visible. Because real visibility, the type of visibility that you need now as a founder, often needs you to break away from all of those patterns that previously served you. Because you're in a different seat, you're in a different season. You might have to lean into at the next level. So you might need to be bolder than that good girl in you feels comfortable with. You might need to be a little bit sharper, a bit more direct than the people pleaser in you is comfortable with. And that's not a visibility problem. That's an identity shift. You're not just trying to post more stuff on LinkedIn. You're trying to lean into this new phase of identity. So what do you do with all of this? What do you do with these realizations? Well, these 4 steps will help you for sure, and you can do them alone, but I would recommend doing them with a friend. So maybe another founder, but somebody that you trust, and do that with somebody that's feeling the same stuff that you're feeling. We actually do this as part of my coaching program, and I've seen it done before when people have done it on their own and when they've done it in groups, and it's so much easier and more impactful when you do it with somebody else. So the first thing is I want you to get really honest about what visibility actually means to you. So not in a generic business sense, like it will get me more clients, it might get me a book deal, it'll get me more followers, it'll give me more money. I don't mean that. I mean, for you really to strip it back and think, what does visibility mean for you? Like good or bad, like what shows up? Does it mean speaking more truthfully? Does it mean being more opinionated? Does it mean finally claiming your expertise in your space and actually saying, I'm blooming good at this? Does it mean letting yourself be known, really known, rather than just followed? Because the more specific you are, the clearer we can get around where the real fear lies. And then step 2 is I want you to name the story that appears in your head. So the moment you decide that you're going to be more visible, so you're going to be like, hi guys, look at me. And that might be posting a comment, that might be posting a video, that might be sharing some advice online. What does your head say to you? Does it say, who am I to say that? What if people judge me? What if I sound arrogant? What if I upset some people with my opinion? What if I can't say it and then take it back? What if people think I've changed? Or what if I say this and nobody cares? Now, that story you tell yourself, that's gold, because that's exactly where the work is. That's what you need to work on. And then the next step is to write down your truths. I had this exact conversation with my client yesterday. Hi, Debbie, if you're watching this. And that is basically where you write down 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever statements that are true to you about your industry and what you do, the work that you do in the world. So it might be if you're a leadership coach, or if you're an L&D coach, if you look after training, you might write down, I believe money is best spent on training for soft skills rather than hard skills. Or if you're a recruiter, you might think, one of my truths is I believe that phoning a candidate to say I've got no news on that job is news to that candidate. And then make sure that you have those truths written down, and they are your anchor. They are the things that you truly believe in. In those moments where visibility feels a bit scared and you have an opportunity to really be seen, you go back to your identity, back to your truths, back to your anchor. And next, I want you to stop treating visibility like a performance. And I don't mean that in some kind of judgy way, like, oh, you're being fake and you're out there just doing a performance. I don't mean that. I mean, when you show up, you're showing up in the way that your audience expects you to show up. Like you're showing up just to let everybody know that you're still in the game, kind of thing. And if you feel like you have to be more confident, you have to perform certainty, you have to perform polished, you have to perform authority and having all your stuff together. If you feel like you have to perform, I just have to rock up to tell people I'm still around. That's not fun. That performance feels heavy. That makes visibility feel like something you have to gear yourself up for. If you're just performing, what I want for you isn't performance, it's self-trust. And that means practicing truth in smaller, safer ways. And what I mean by that is when you're about to comment, say the thing a little bit more clearly and practice sharing your opinion without softening it quite so much. I'm not saying go out there and be horrible to people, but like maybe write a caption that sounds like you and what you truly believe, or post the video when you first film it rather than after the 5 or 6 goes that you've done. Just allowing yourself to be a little bit more distinct, a little bit more known, and through proving over and over and over again, even in small ways, that you can still be seen and still be safe and accepted, will help you. And underneath all of this, I think the deeper truth is that a lot of women think that they need to be more visible, but what they really need is more self-trust. Because when you really trust yourself, visibility doesn't feel so scary, because you stop trying to manage everybody's perception of you. You stop editing yourself into something more acceptable and more normal for your industry, what your peers believe to be true, all that kind of stuff. And when you stop making yourself small to just be easy to digest, if you like, you're not really building authority. So if being visible right now feels a bit hard, if there's some resistance, I want you to think that as a good thing, because that often means that you're standing right on the edge of the next version of you. And I know that sounds really cheesy, but it's true. And that next version requires more truth, more safety, a heck of a lot more self-trust than that current version has ever needed. This is your next level. That's exciting. You are at the point where your outer level, that outer world, what you're about to step into requires an inner shift first. And that right there, that's exactly the work that I care about the most. That's exciting. So I want you to see this as a good thing. A lot of people will tell you how to be more visible, but very few people will help you understand why visibility feels so hard in the first place. And that's what you need to ask yourself. That's the work you need to do. And what I don't want you to do is just ignore that part, and what many brilliant women do, and just show up enough to stay in the game, but not enough to fully be known. Because that gap, what you miss out on, is massive and it costs you. Okay, so if that sounds like something that you've sensed or you feel seen in any way, drop something in the comments. And if you'd like to work with me on that and join one of my programs or just have a chat, then you can do that in the link below. But either way, I'll catch you next week. And I'm wishing you lots of love and light. So from one founder to another, take care.